Well, Coach, this has been great so far. Thank you very much. We want to transition now to a segment that we call Start, Sub, or Sit, and we play it with every guest here on the show. And what we'll do is, for those maybe listening for the first time, we'll give you 3 different topics around a theme, ask you which one you would start, which one you'd sub, and then which one you'd leave on the bench and sit. So, Coach, if you're ready, we'll dive in on this.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. So this first start sub sit has to do with your thoughts on stopping another team when they're on a run, calling a quick timeout to break the rhythm, switching up your defense, maybe throwing a different coverage at them, or making a couple of substitutions, personnel decisions to see if you can put better matchups out there on the floor.
Can I say all 3? I'm going to go with the Thomas Iserlohn answer. It depends.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a very famous answer on this.
I know. Because, all 3 things are absolutely worth thinking of. First of all, I think that the main question is, how many timeouts do I have? Is it early in the game? How's the body language of my team? Do I need to save a timeout? So timeout is always a good thing. But on the other hand, as a coach, especially myself, I try to avoid it if I get the feeling the team can solve the problem from within with the huddle. And that depends a lot on body language. If they have the right body language, if they feel like, okay, they're getting together, they feel in sync, then I don't use the timeout. So let's put the timeout on the bench then. Changing defenses. Actually, let's have the timeout as sub. I would put changing the defenses on the bench because a lot of times teams get on a run because you are not executing your things well, and you can not solve the problem a lot of times just by changing up defenses. Usually, the reason we're doing certain things is because we believe they work. If they don't work, we probably don't do them right. If we don't do them right, it won't help if we just do something else and then do that wrong and blame it on that. So let's fix the thing first. So changing the defense, yes, can be important, especially if you feel like the opponent does a good job to exploit your weaknesses. Then let's change defense. But let's try to fix this first and bring new subs in. Also depends. Maybe they got on a run because one player is just messing up the whole time. Then right. This can be very easily solved. You'll need a timeout. You just go to the table, call us up, player out, problem solved.
Sure.
Everything's fine. So ideally, it's done with a substitution, and you don't need to do anything else. Calling a timeout would be second, and changing the defense would be third. And then I just hope that one of those 3 things works.
Yeah. Would any of these answers change based off of you are at home versus on the road, or the quality of your opponent? As far as, would you be more quick to maybe call a timeout if you're on the road and a team hits a couple of threes and their crowd is really into it, as opposed to at home, maybe letting them play?
Well, you give the crowd another minute to celebrate if you take a quick timeout. So I don't know if this would be the solution. For me, it's more about how we look, what feeling I get about the group. Do we look insecure? Do we look like we need help? Do the players look like they need some new input, or are we fine? It's sometimes you look at the players' eyes and they know exactly what they did wrong. It won't change. I can tell them in timeout. I can tell them again. They're not going to hear anything new. So they know what they've been doing wrong. They huddle up. They talk about it. And even though we might make another mistake, we still look sharp and ready. And you might not have to do anything. So for me, I would say it doesn't matter whether you're at home or on the road. It more depends on how we look, how our body language is like, and how players are reacting.
With these quick huddle ups, how much are you working on them at all? Because I feel sometimes, coaches yell, huddle up, and the guys get together and like, hey, come on, guys, let's play harder. and like, does that necessarily solve anything? So what kind of influence are you trying to have on these quick huddle ups with your team, when it's just the players?
Yes. Well, first of all, I have them huddle up in practice as well, so they get used to it. Sometimes, they may not have anything to say, but just by huddling up, you feel the team is getting closer. Literally, guys are just getting together. And if you stand together in a huddle, you cannot bitch about the referee. You cannot go to the referee for the technical because you're huddling up. Sometimes even if you just say, "Hey, let's play harder. 1, 2, 3, let's go." That's better than 5 players, one guy looking frustrated into the stands, looking for his wife to show her with his eyes how stupid his teammate just acted. The other guy is yelling at the referee, getting a technical, and the third guy is talking to his opponent. So it's sometimes you don't have to say much, but at least get together and give your group the feeling of, okay, hey, on to the next one. And I tell my players, if you have nothing else to say, then just say, hey, forget about it, on to the next one. This is what we do next. This is the defense we do next. This is the offense we run next. And that's always something you can talk about.
All right, Coach. Our next start sub sit for you. We know you're also a coach who likes to play through the post. And so we call this one tough to teach. So tough to teach your big men when you want to play through the post. So start, sub, or sit in terms of what's the hardest, teaching them patience, teaching them how to pass out of the post, or teaching them to establish position in the post?
All 3 things are tough to teach, especially if they haven't been taught at an early age. I would say, again, it really depends on the player. For some players, they are very good at positioning. They do everything right, but then they get the ball and just can't pass the ball out. I think positioning is something that is easier to teach because that's the thing that if they have learned anything in their youth development, it's probably positioning. So at least they have something to fall back to and something they remember. And sometimes they just need to be reminded of it. Of course, then you have some players who just don't know how to position themselves, but then you don't throw them the ball in the post anyway. So I would say positioning is maybe the easiest thing. The patience thing is something that comes with experience and also with understanding what are we looking for in the post. We give our players a clear instructions of order what to do when you catch the ball in the post. So the first thing is quick move. If you have a quick move because you have a high-low position or you have a quick drop step because your defender did not do a good job on jumping below you on the catch, and you have an open angle to attack, or if you have both feet in the paint, then you go for a quick move. Now you just attack. Period. That's number one. Always number one. If you don't have a quick move, the second thing, and this is where patience comes in place. We have our cut automatics, cut, fill, handoff, split post actions. I think that's kind of easy to teach because if you don't have a quick move, you need to wait for those cuts. And if this cut is done, then you can go to work. And then comes the passing. The third thing is then, okay, you go to work one-on-one. And if you have any kind of advantage, you pass the ball out. I think passing is the most difficult to teach because you have so many different variations of passers, to cutters from the weak side, to cutters from strong side, to shooters on the ball side, to shooters on the weak side. You have so many different situations against double team from top, against double team from baseline. A lot of techniques, a lot of reads. So I would definitely say passing is the most difficult thing to teach, but it's doable. I mean, we've seen it. Also with us, we're talking about the same big man, Andreas Seifert, German national team player. He was known to be an excellent scorer in the post, but he would rarely pass the ball. Now he's known for being one of the best passers, big man passers in the league. He has really developed that skill. But I think part of that was because he knows, okay, I'm going to have my chance to attack one-on-one when all the cuts are finished.
Yeah. Coach, staying on that passing thread and just looking at passing to weak side cutters, What kind of passes are you teaching, or how are you teaching your post players to find those cuts?
Well, also there, depending on what type of cutter just cut in, where he cut in from, did he cut in front or in the back of his defense? Basically, any type of pass will do when the ball arrives.
Okay.
Sometimes you really got to be pragmatic. I mean, for some players, they can do all those fancy passes and passes you would never teach to a young guy. But why would you stop somebody from making those passes if the passes really find their target? On the other hand, it makes no sense trying to be over creative with players who are very limited in their ball handling skills, in their feeling for making the right passes. So it also makes a big difference if you're really long, so you can pass over somebody, or if you have to pass around your defender.
Coach, with the patience and maybe someone that's not a great passer, how about adding in maybe like a dribble handoff out from the post? So a dribble out and handoff. So instead of trying to become a passer, someone that just is either going to score it or can dribble off and get into some sort of DHO action.
Yes.
Is that part of the sort of package that you would teach a post player as well?
Absolutely. We have this option also to go into the dribble handoff, and not only if the post is not a great passer, it's also if the post is not a great post-up player. So we still want to get the ball towards the rim. And penetrations are not only dribble penetrations. Penetrations can also be penetrating passes. And I feel like if you have the ball close to the rim, it puts a lot of pressure on the defense and it opens some space for shooters. So we would even throw the ball into the post, not to score out of the post, maybe to score out of cuts and some weak side action and making those passes. But if that doesn't happen, some of our players who are not known as low post threats are asked and told to go into dribble handoff action. We use this with the national team a lot because we have the situation that on one hand we can have a Rashid Malbašić, who's one of the most dominant big men. He can score one-on-one with the ball in his hands. He's a point center. And we want to throw the ball inside. And if we don't have him in that certain window, but we still have all those post-up plays, then we just use those for dribble handoff actions and get the ball moving and get the offensive going. So yes, we use this a lot.
Okay.
Coach, my last question, are there positions on the floor that you find it hard then to find the passes or maybe make the dribble handoffs, in terms of if he catches too low on the baseline or like in that short corner, is there really just no angle to really make those passes? Are you trying to tell your big men like, hey, try to position yourself here? I mean, obviously you can't get that quick finish.
Yeah, if you have a very skilled passer, he will find a way to get it out there. But if we get too close to the baseline or even too close to the sideline, it's very dangerous to get trapped on this handoff. So we try to stay away from this.
Okay.
Besides this, sometimes it's better to start the ball too far away from the basket for the dribble handoff action. Because you don't need so many dribbles. With one dribble, you're at the 3-point line, you can hand it off. So we tell our bigs, if you don't catch the ball deep enough to go to work on your men, then go into that dribble handoff action.
Start, sub, or sit for you here. So this last one is, in your opinion, what makes a great 45 cut? So what it is about that cut that makes it particularly hard to guard. So the options are, is it the speed of the cut? So how hard that guy cuts? Is it the timing, either early or later? Or is it the personnel of the cutters or the two involved on that backside? So, if the shooter's in the corner and it confuses the defense because a non-shooter cuts and they decide who to stay. So basically, is the personnel important in that 45?
So to destroy your question, I think all three are important. Let me still try to bring them in some kind of order. Okay. I think I would start the personnel because if you cut a 5'4" midget under the basket, it may not be that effective. So I think it's always better to cut the more athletic player and keep the better shooter out. So I would go with personnel, start the personnel. I think timing always beats speed. And you can see this when young teams play veteran teams. They might be quicker but they still might receive one fast break basket after the other because the veteran team just knows when to start running. They just know when to hit ahead, and so I think the timing is crucial. The change of speed is probably more important than the absolute speed. Always in everything, and crossovers and fakes. It's not about the speed; it's about the change of speed. And then, of course, speed can make up for a lot of things. But if you cut the wrong guy at the wrong time, speed is not going to fix it for you.
Coach, the follow up on the timing and working on the timing with players. There's times when maybe just making that 45 cut early to clear a space, maybe for some other action, is valuable versus maybe trying to wait and pause and actually get the back door on that. So how do you differentiate cutting early versus cutting late in that read?
Well, I would cut a guy early if he's a non-respected shooter, because the defender could sag in too much and eat up too much space for our offense. So if I have somebody who can not shoot the basketball, or who at least cannot shoot it at a high percentage, I would cut him early. Besides this, I'm not a big fan of overcutting, and I think you can see if players, the lower level the players are coming from, the more they cut. That's an experience that I made. They cut all the time from anywhere, and sometimes it's better just to stay wide, keep the floor spread. A non-shooter, yes, I would cut immediately. Besides this, I would wait and see what the defense does. If the defense turn its head and you can create an advantage with the cut, do it. But it's always, basketball offense is about creating advantages. And if you don't create an advantage with the cut, don't cut. You might create an advantage just by being spaced out and creating space for the ball handler, driver, post player, whatever.
Coach, I'm wondering, does it change at all? Because you see it a lot when you do like a drag screen kind of in transition, you'll see a lot of teams come off and it seems like it's almost an automatic. So does that factor into your thoughts? If it's a drag screen, maybe let's cut regardless, because maybe you can get that backdoor more often.
Yeah, we do this, for example, if we run the drag screen with the 4, we have the 5-man cut, but that's due to according to the same rule, the 5-man non-shooter cut under the basket, right? So of course, a lot of times, and again, it goes by, do we get an advantage out of it? If the defense is not set up and the one player playing in between loses me and turns his head towards me, yes, of course I can cut. But if I'm a player who's not very athletic and is a better 3-point shooter than finisher at the rim against the challenging defense, then it might be better to just stay out. So I think it really depends on the personnel and the situation.
Coach, you're off the start, sub, or sit hot seat. That was a lot
survived.
of fun. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.